Good morning and welcome to another of Tim's Tech Talk videos here at Venom Motorsports Canada. So today we're having a look at a 1300 watt ATV, and the question is, how do we tension the drive chain? So the drive chain is right here, and you'll notice, of course, we have a small gear in the front, large gear in the back, 218H chain right here. And in order to snug this up, what we've got to do firstly is loosen these four frame nut and bolt assemblies that you see here. So we have to loosen this, loosen that. Now loosen, I mean you have to crack it and back it off about 2 turns to make sure you have very fluid motion or movement. So we want to back this guy off, back this one off, back off this nut and bolt at the top of the axle, and the same on this side. So the first step is to crack these and then back them off a couple of turns so you're 100% sure that they will move freely for you. And then the actual tensioning is done right here with these 2 adjusting screws that you see. So what you're going to do is to turn each one of these nuts in, and you want to rotate these nuts, of course, in a clockwise motion to snug them up using a 13 mil wrench, and you want to ensure that as you're tightening, whatever you do to the left, you do to the right. So at the end of the day, the number of threads exposed is about the same to ensure that the axle is nice and straight. So how do you know when you've got enough chain tension? Well, typically there's great techie dissertations on this, and what you'll find is you'll be asked to apply a 10 Newton force right in the middle of the distance between the large gear or the drive gear and the driven gear. Press down with a 10 Newton force and you should get about 3 millimeters of deflection. So what does that look like? Well, I'll use my thumb, and you can see this chain is pretty snug. So I'm applying a little bit of force, and again I get about 3 millimeters of deflection. In other words, it's a pretty snug chain. And that's what is required for this particular drive. So again, looking at it from the bottom perspective, you can see I'm pushing up here just a wee bit, 3 mils of deflection, and the same on top. So you've got to keep an eye on this, because if your chain is too loose, it will simply pop off. And then of course, you'll have to replace it, put it back on the drive gears, and tension it as required. There is one other thing though that we need to talk about before we close up for today, and that is the torque function. So when you have a look at here in your control panel on your bike, you've got 3. So one is for the rate at which the throttle responds, the second is the speed controller, and the third is the amount of power or torque. And what I always recommend is when you first get the bike, turn the torque all the way down. This will allow the chain to work harden for a while and get used to being worked. Otherwise, if you move the torque setting all the way up and you're just new to biking, new to an ATV, and you give it, of course, full throttle, which we're all going to do, there is a chance that because this bike does produce a lot of torque, you may actually snap the chain. So again, just turn the torque setting down, let the chain work harden for, let's say, maybe a couple of weeks, and then you can gradually increase the amount of torque. The other thing I often suggest to new ATV riders is turn the speed down to about halfway. Give yourself a chance to get used to the unit. And if you have a young rider, I suggest that you turn the rate control all the way up, which slows down the response of the throttle, meaning when you give it some throttle, there's a little bit of a delay before things start to happen, and motion will increase slowly, not quickly. So again, watch the rate control. If you have the rate control all the way down, what's going to occur, of course, is as soon as you hit the throttle, you're going to get a response from the ATV. If the torque is all the way up, it's going to take right off. So nice machine, good power. When you first buy it, watch this setting. Turn it down, keep your torque reduced until you give your chain a chance to work harden. So that's all there is to adjusting a chain. And again, the only thing we still have to do here is to reinstall our cover. Always encourage you to make sure you have a cover on your chain. Enjoy the ride, my friends. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.